Nobody knows what caused the war between humans and monsters, but they began to live in peace after the war ended. Dr. Glenn examines a Minotaur woman and reveals that she is pregnant. After some time, Glenn receives a letter from his teacher, Dr. Cthulhu, who asks him and his assistant, Saphantite, to assist her in treating the third and fourth-rate fighters from the arena. Dr. Glenn and Saphantite come across Tasalia Scythia, a third-rank fighter who requests that Dr. Glenn examine her. Glenn informs her after her examination that she is perfectly fine. Nonetheless, her two attendants inform Glenn that Tasalia is not doing well in her arena matches. Glenn watches her play to figure out why she did not win and discovers that she needs her hooves fitted. He repairs her hooves and provides shoes for them, and she goes on to win all of her matches after that. Saphantite recalls meeting Glenn as a child. She was sent as a hostage to Glenn's family, and after a year, when the war ended, she returned, and they reunited at medical school. Back in the present, Glenn and Saphantite go to Merrow Waterways to get some water and meet Lulala, a young merwoman who invites them to listen to her song. Glenn checks her out after she coughs while singing. Glenn advises Lulala to spend equal amounts of time in and out of the water because she has gill inflammation. Lulala claims she must sing to support her family. While they are talking, Lulala jumps into the water to save a drowning child. Unfortunately, Lulala drowns after rescuing the child due to using her lungs to breathe in the water, but Glenn dives in and saves her by kissing her as CPR. Lulala starts singing publicly after recovering due to Glenn's medicine. Lady Scatty, a Lindworm City Council representative, pays Glenn a visit and requests that he locate and reattach her bodyguard Kunai's arm, which she lost in a fight. Scatty is the most powerful person in Lindworm. She reveals that Kunai is a flesh golem made from human corpse parts, and she distrusts doctors. However, Kunai claims she will find her arm on her own and refuses Glenn's assistance. Kunai loses her leg while searching for her arm. Tasalia discovers Kunai's leg and informs Glenn, while Kulala discovers Kunai's arm and hands it over to Glenn. Later, Glenn connects Kunai's arm and leg to her body via nerves and blood vessels. Kunai informs him that she is experiencing a sensation rather than pain. She tells Glenn that he will have to pay for her humiliation. Arhania mocks Saphantite for having feelings for Glenn. Glenn and Saphantite were taught by Dr. Cthulhu, who advised them not to have a relationship until they got their own clinic. Arhania gives a harpy egg to Saphantite, and some slavers attack Glenn's clinic to steal the egg. However, Kunai arrives and helps Glenn and Saphantite escape. Kunai invites them to join her on a mission to take out slavers, and Lulala is already with them. When they arrive at the slavers' hideout, they are attacked, but Tasalia arrives to help them take down the slavers. Kunai tries to hold off the slavers while Glenn, Saphantite, and Scatty search for harpies. Glenn is treating a harpy named Illy, while Saphantite believes she has hidden two secrets from Glenn. The first is that she suffers from an incurable disease, and the second is that she is a member of an assassin family. Unfortunately, Saphantite is stabbed with a poisoned dagger, and after that, Glenn reveals that he knew about her link to an assassin family. Saphantite tries to seduce Glenn but falls ill due to the poison. While on the way to the Harpy village, Tasalia is about to be hit by a landslide, but her attendants shield her. Later, they are transported to the village along with Glenn and Saphantite. Kay, one of Tasalia's attendants, is hurt, and Glenn treats her, reassuring her that it's only a sprain. Lorna, Tasalia's other attendant, is suffering from the disease of forgetting things, and Tasalia asks Glenn to examine her. She explains that she and her attendants grew up as sisters, but now they have the relationship of servant and master, and they both share everything. Glenn explains that Lorna's absent-mindedness is due to Kay's illness and blindfolds her to calm her down. Tasalia tells Lorna that she loves both her and Kay very much. Later, Kay and Lorna seduce Glenn and tell him that they will do everything for their lady. Illy's feathers are falling out, and she would rather meet Tasalia than receive treatment from Glenn. Then Illy agrees to be examined, and Glenn tells her that she is not sick and that her feathers will regrow. Illy becomes enraged and flees, later telling Tasalia that she wishes to become a gladiator like her. They fight each other, and Tasalia not only defeats her but also humiliates her. Saphantite is jealous of Glenn and Tasalia's conversation. Glenn is informed that Illy has gone missing and may have left the village. They search for her, and then Glenn reveals that she is getting her adult feathers. He explains that she carries phoenix blood and can be reborn with new feathers. After a few days, Illy gets her new colorful feathers, and she shows them to Glenn. Glenn notices her feathers becoming hot as a result of the phoenix flames. Glenn and Saphantite are getting ready to return to their clinic when Illy comes covered in arachne webbing. Glenn asks her to wash it off, but later, other fellows of Illy also have the same problem. Glenn and Saphantite go to the forest and learn that Saphantite's best friend, Arania, is behind this. She tells them that she wanted to trap Illy so that she could use her feather design in the dress. Glenn asks Saphantite to take a break from work and go relax in the hot spring, and she agrees. Arania takes Glenn for a walk, catches him in a trap, and tries to seduce him. However, Thessalia arrives and frees Glenn. She claims that she loves Glenn, and they both have a fight, which is interrupted by Saphantite, who says that Glenn has no time for love and courtship. At night, Saphantite confesses her love for Glenn, and while they are drinking, they feel a tremor. According to the village elder, this is due to the giant. Thessalia calms everyone who is worried about the approaching giant. She sends Illy to inform Scatty about the situation and asks Arania to wrap people's belongings using her web. As they are about to leave the village, they notice Thessalia is missing. Thessalia tries to distract the giant so that everyone can escape safely, but Saphantite arrives and prevents her from confronting the giant. Glenn says he will dissuade the giant from coming to the village. Then they confront the giantess, and Glenn asks her what has enraged her, to which she responds that she is looking for a doctor because she is sick. Dione is the name of a peaceful giantess. Glenn examines the giantess and gives her medicine, and Arania makes clothes for her so she won't get cold. Dione is very happy with the behavior of the villagers. Glenn and Saphantite are invited by Lady Scatty to the water show, where she faints in the crowd. Glenn and Saphantite meet Kithuli and inquire about Scatty's disease. Scatty is suffering from a rare illness that has spread throughout her body, and the cause of this disease is unknown. She tells them that Scatty has no interest in curing her disease. Kunai is determined to repay Scatty for what she has done for her, and she asks Glenn to cure Lady Scatty. Saphantite is shocked to hear their conversation, but Glenn says he will only do his job. After entering Scatty's bedroom, Glenn is surprised to hear her voice for the first time. He discovers Scatty has a heart-shaped tumor in her chest. Because the tumor can change the direction of her veins, it puts a lot of strain on her body. Glenn requests Kithuli's assistance with Scatty's surgery, but she declines, claiming that it is impossible. After Glenn's persuasion, Kithuli agrees, and Glenn decides to seek Arania's help during the surgery. Kunai pursues Scatty for surgery, but she refuses, stating that it is her fate. Glenn goes to a workshop to assemble a team for the surgery and meets a cyclops named Meme. He orders them to get some new weapons for the surgery. Arania practices the surgery on Kunai, and Kunai states that Arania's hands are rougher than Glenn's. Kunai then tells Glenn that Scatty is stubborn and unwilling to agree. Glenn asks Kunai to keep trying to convince her. Later, Glenn and Kithuli visit the workshop to check on the processing of weapons. They are told that Meme is making some special needles for the surgery. Glenn is informed that Meme has collapsed, and they rush to help her. Glenn treats Meme and tells them that she collapsed after seeing something spinning. Meme then explains how she found a spinning wheel and how to use steel to produce suture needles. Glenn tries to persuade Scatty to have surgery. Scatty delivers a speech at the meeting, during which she is confronted by Glenn, who informs her of the need for surgery. Later, Glenn guides Arania through the preparation for surgery. At night, the girls talk about alcohol, and then they talk about love. Thessalia apprehends Arania as she attempts to steal Glenn's golden locket and flee. Glenn meets Scatty and discusses how she struggled a lot to create this city and tried to make a connection between humans and monsters. Glenn convinces Scatty, saying that he wants to do her surgery so that she can enjoy the beauty of life and nature. Finally, Scatty agrees to surgery, and they prepare for it. Glenn informs his assistants that they must cool Scatty's body because her temperature rises as a result of her dragon body. Finally, Glenn comes out and announces that the surgery was successful. Scatty speaks in public for the first time and assures everyone that she will carry out her responsibilities. Glenn treats Saphantite, and she feels embarrassed when Glenn gets close to her. Glenn later encounters Lady Scatty, whose carriage has broken down on the way. Scatty hugs Glenn, calling him Big Brother, and invites him to accompany her, but he declines. Meme later arrives and quickly repairs the carriage. Scatty thanks Glenn and Meme with 2 barrels of wine before leaving. Lady Gigas saves the people from a boulder falling on them, and they say thanks to her. Lady Thessalia transports wine barrels, and Illy brings fruit for Glenn. All the girls welcome Glenn, and everyone takes something for him. They all have a party, and Scatty says thanks to Glenn for saving her life. Saphantite gets angry at Glenn for coming home late.